I was 300 miles away when the photo arrived. My brother Caleb's message was sickeningly cheerful. Merry Christmas. Our family is having such a great time at home. Wish you were here, but what I saw in that image made my blood turn to ice. My parents, Dr. Richard and Eleanor Vance, sitting on my couch, Caleb and his pregnant wife, Brooke, lounging by my fireplace, wine glasses on my coffee table. But it wasn't just a visit. In the background, I could see suitcases lined up in the hallway, baby furniture stacked against my wall, moving boxes with Caleb's handwriting scrawled across them. They hadn't broken a window or kicked down a door. Somehow they'd gotten inside my home, the one I'd bought with 3 years of savings, the one I'd hidden behind an LLC, specifically to keep them away from, and they'd simply moved in, without asking, without permission, without a single moment of hesitation. My hands went numb. 300 miles separated me from everything I owned, and my family was inside it, unpacking their lives into mine like they had every right to be there. Like my boundaries meant nothing, like I meant nothing. The security system I'd spent thousands on, the cameras, the smart locks, all of it had failed, or worse, they'd found a way around it. And now they were celebrating Christmas in my sanctuary, while I sat here powerless to stop them. If you're feeling that same rage building up inside you right now, if you've ever been pushed aside by your own family, hit that like button because this story is about to get wild. And don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. Growing up in Maple Bridge, I was always the invisible child. My name was Faith Stewart back then before I legally changed it to Aurora Vance, trying to create a new identity separate from a family that never really saw me. From the moment Caleb was born when I was 3 years old, I became background noise in my own family. I still remember the day my parents brought him home from the hospital. I had drawn them pictures with crayons, eager to show them my artwork. My mother walked right past me, cooing over the baby, and my father told me to be quiet because Caleb needed to sleep. My pictures ended up in the recycling bin. I found them there the next morning, crumpled beneath coffee grounds. That pattern continued for the next 2 decades. When I was 7 and won the school spelling bee, my parents missed the ceremony because Caleb had a cold and they didn't want to leave him with a babysitter. When I was 10 and made the honor roll for the 5th consecutive semester, my father glanced at my report card during commercial breaks of the football game he was watching with Caleb. "Good job, kiddo," he muttered without looking up. Meanwhile, when Caleb brought home a C+ in math that same semester, my mother threw him a pizza party and invited his friends over to celebrate his improvement. The disparity wasn't subtle. It was glaring, painful, and constant. For my 13th birthday, I asked for a new bike because mine had been handed down from a neighbor and was rusty with flat tires. My mother said we needed to save money. 3 months later, Caleb got a top-of-the-line gaming computer for his 10th birthday, complete with all the latest accessories. When I asked why my father said Caleb needed it for his education, I was using a 7-year-old laptop that took 10 minutes to boot up. High school was more of the same, only worse, because I was old enough to understand exactly what was happening. I threw myself into my studies, convinced that if I just achieved enough, excelled enough, proved myself enough, they would finally see me. I graduated valedictorian with a full scholarship to the University of Colorado. My parents attended the ceremony but left early because Caleb had a baseball game. They missed my speech, the speech where I thanked them for their support, even though I had written it knowing they probably wouldn't hear it. I stood at that podium, looked out at the empty seats where they should have been, and something inside me cracked just a little bit more. College was my escape. I moved to Boulder and rarely came home. When I did visit for holidays, I was met with the same pattern. Christmas was always the worst. Year after year, I watched as Caleb opened piles of expensive gifts, while I got practical items like socks, dish towels, and discount store candles. One year, when I was 19, I worked double shifts at the campus coffee shop for 3 months straight, saving every penny I could spare. I bought my father a genuine Italian leather wallet from a boutique downtown, spending $200 I could barely afford. I got my mother a cashmere scarf in her favorite shade of cream, another $150. For Caleb, I found a limited edition vinyl record he had been talking about for months, tracking it down through online collectors and paying premium shipping to get it in time. Christmas morning, I watched them open my gifts with barely concealed disappointment. My father held up the wallet and said, "Thanks, kiddo, you really didn't have to do this," then set it on the side table where it stayed for the rest of the day. I never saw him use it. Years later, I found it still in its box in a closet when I was helping them clean out the garage. My mother unwrapped the scarf and her face fell. "Oh, Faith, this is lovely, but it's not really my color. You know I prefer warmer tones." She refolded it carefully and placed it back in the tissue paper. It showed up at a charity auction the following spring. I know because a friend sent me a photo of it with the price tag still attached. Caleb was the worst. He didn't even open my gift. He just tossed it onto the pile with all his other presents, got distracted by the new PlayStation my parents had bought him, a $600 console with a dozen games, and forgot about the vinyl entirely. I found it 3 days later, still wrapped, shoved behind the couch. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I don't really listen to vinyl anymore anyway. I'm more into streaming now." I left that visit a day early, claiming I had to work. The truth was, I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating me with every reminder that I didn't matter, that I had never mattered, that I would never matter enough. But the worst part wasn't the gifts or the forgotten birthdays or the missed milestones. The worst part was that I kept trying. I kept showing up, kept calling, kept hoping that this time would be different. This time they would see me. This time they would care. I was addicted to the hope that someday, somehow, I would be enough for them. After college, I moved to Denver and threw myself into my career with a ferocity that surprised even me. I started as a junior brand strategist at a mid-sized marketing firm, working 80-hour weeks and taking on every project no one else wanted. I was hungry for success, not just because I loved the work, but because I needed to prove something to them, to myself, to the universe that had decided I was forgettable. Within 2 years, I was promoted to senior strategist. Within 4, I was leading my own team. I built campaigns that went viral, secured contracts with major national clients, and became known in the industry as someone who could turn struggling brands into household names. My work was featured in marketing journals. I spoke at conferences. I won awards. And through it all, my phone stayed silent. Not once did my father call to say he was proud of me. Not once did my mother ask about my projects or my life. Caleb would text occasionally, usually when he needed something. "Hey sis, my car insurance is due and I'm a little short this month. Can you spot me 300? Or, "Faith, Mom and Dad's anniversary is coming up. Want to chip in for a trip? I'm thinking 500 from each of us." I always said yes. Always sent the money. Always hoped that this act of generosity would somehow translate into recognition, into love, into being seen. It never did. The money disappeared into the void of their expectations, and I remained invisible. I paid for Caleb's car insurance for 8 months straight when he was between jobs, a total of almost $3,000. He never paid me back, never even acknowledged it as a loan. It was just what sisters did. I covered his rent twice when his business wasn't doing well, another $4,000 gone. When I gently suggested he pay me back once he was stable, he looked at me like I had suggested something offensive. "Come on, Faith. We're family. You don't keep score with family." But they kept score with me. Every time I couldn't make it home for a holiday because of work, it was marked against me. Every time I was too busy to drop everything and help them move furniture or babysit or run errands, it was noted and cataloged as evidence of my selfishness. The double standard was staggering. Caleb missed 3 consecutive Thanksgivings because he wanted to go skiing with his friends, and my parents just laughed it off as Caleb being Caleb. I missed one Christmas because I had to fly to New York for an emergency client meeting, and my mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. The loneliness was suffocating. I had friends, and they were incredible. Maya worked in finance and had a sharp wit that could cut through any awkwardness. Liam was a software engineer with a kind heart and an endless supply of terrible puns. Chloe was a graphic designer who saw the world in colors and possibilities. They celebrated every win with me, showed up when I needed them, and never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. But there was always this void, this aching emptiness where family was supposed to be. I'd see elderly couples holding hands in the park and wonder what it felt like to have that kind of unconditional love from the people who were supposed to give it to you from birth. I'd watch parents at coffee shops listening intently to their adult children's stories, leaning in with genuine interest, and feel a physical ache in my chest. That should have been mine. That should have been my family. But it wasn't, and I was slowly coming to accept that it never would be. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything, or so I thought. 3 years ago, I landed the contract of a lifetime. A major tech company wanted to rebrand their entire product line, and they chose my firm specifically because of my work. The contract was worth millions to the company and earned me an $85,000 bonus, the largest I'd ever received. I was ecstatic, terrified, and determined to prove I deserved it. I worked on that campaign for 6 months, barely sleeping, living on coffee and takeout, pouring every ounce of creativity and strategic thinking I had into making it perfect. When we launched, it exceeded every expectation. Sales skyrocketed. Social media engagement went through the roof. Industry publications wrote glowing reviews. My boss pulled me into her office and told me I was being considered for a promotion to VP of Strategy, a position that would put me in the C-suite by the time I was 32. Maya, Liam, and Chloe insisted on celebrating. They took me to this loud, crowded bar downtown, the kind of place where the music pounds in your chest and the energy is electric. We toasted to my success. They made ridiculous speeches about how they always knew I'd be running the world someday. Liam even made a terrible pun about me being a brand new woman with brand strategy, which was so bad it wrapped back around to being funny. I should have been on top of the world. I was on top of the world professionally. But personally, my phone stayed silent. I checked it compulsively even though I knew better. No congratulations from my parents. No proud message from my father saying he saw the campaign and thought it was brilliant. Nothing from Caleb acknowledging that his sister had just accomplished something extraordinary. Just silence. The same silence that had followed every achievement, every milestone, every moment I had hoped would finally be enough to earn their attention. We were on our third round of drinks when my phone finally buzzed. My heart leaped, that stupid, pathetic hope surging up despite everything. Maybe they'd heard. Maybe they'd seen the trade publications, or someone had told them, or they'd actually been paying attention to my life for once. I grabbed my phone eagerly. It was Caleb. "Hey, sis, congrats on the bonus. That's amazing. So, listen, I've been thinking. Brooke and I are looking at upgrading to a bigger SUV before the baby comes. The one we want is about $30,000. Since you just got that huge bonus, could you help us out? We're family, and family helps family, right? We'd pay you back eventually. Maybe." I stared at that message for a full minute while my friend's laughter faded into background noise. Not a single word about my achievement. Not a question about the campaign or the work I'd done or how I was feeling about this massive career milestone. Just his hand out his assumption that my success existed to fund his lifestyle, his complete and utter disregard for me as anything other than a source of money. That's when something inside me broke. Not cracked, not bent. Broke clean through. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my drink. Maya grabbed my arm, concerned. "You okay?" I looked at her, at Liam, at Chloe. These people who actually saw me and celebrated me and gave a damn about my life, and I said enough. "I'm done. I'm buying myself a Christmas without them." Liam, who knew bits and pieces of my family situation, raised his glass immediately. "Damn right you are. Let's drink to that." That night, after I got home to my small but expensive downtown apartment, I sat on my couch with my laptop and started searching. I wasn't looking for a new apartment or a condo. I wanted something radical. Something that represented everything they weren't. Something that was completely, undeniably, unquestionably mine. I scrolled through Zillow for hours, looking at properties in the mountains, by lakes, and remote areas far from the city. Then I found it. An A-frame house perched on the edge of a cliff in the Colorado mountains about 3 hours from Denver. It was all floor-to-ceiling windows and black steel, modern and dramatic, and absolutely breathtaking. The listing photos showed a living room that opened onto a massive deck overlooking a valley that seemed to stretch on forever. The master bedroom had windows on 3 sides, making you feel like you were sleeping under the stars. The kitchen was sleek and minimal, all black granite and stainless steel. It was perfect. It was expensive, nearly $500,000, but I could afford it with my bonus, my savings, and a reasonable mortgage. More importantly, it was mine. I called the listing agent the next morning. She was surprised someone wanted to move that fast, but I assured her I was serious. I want to buy it through an LLC, I told her. I'd been doing research all night, reading about asset protection and privacy. Can you help me set that up? She connected me with a lawyer who specialized in real estate transactions. Within a week, Eagles Peak Retreat LLC was formed with me as the sole member and the purchase was underway. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not a word. Not a hint. I let them believe I was still living in my apartment, still accessible, still available to be their bank and their afterthought. The closing took 30 days, and every day felt like holding my breath underwater. I was terrified something would go wrong, that somehow they'd find out and ruin it, that the universe would decide I didn't deserve this one beautiful thing. But the closing went through. I signed papers that didn't have my personal name anywhere on them. I received keys to a house that existed in a legal entity separate from Faith Stewart. I drove up to the property alone on a Friday afternoon in early November, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, and stood on that deck as the sun set over the valley. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, and I cried. Not sad tears. Relief tears. Free tears. For the first time in my adult life, I had something they couldn't touch, couldn't ask for, couldn't take. I furnished the house slowly over the next few months, choosing every piece carefully. A plush, gray sectional that I could sink into with a book. A dining table made from reclaimed wood that seated 8, even though I'd probably never have that many people over. A bed with the softest sheets I'd ever felt. Every room was a statement. This is mine. This is what I want. This is who I am when no one is making demands of me. I installed a security system that would have made a paranoid billionaire proud. Motion sensors cameras with night vision smart locks that logged every entry and exit, a monitored alarm system connected directly to the local sheriff's office. Maya asked why I needed Fort Knox for a vacation house. I just smiled and said I liked being thorough. The truth was, I knew. Some part of me knew that if they ever found out about this place, they'd try to take it. Not just visit. Take. They'd see those 3 bedrooms in that beautiful location and decide it was wasted on me, that Caleb needed it more, that family shares that I was being selfish by having something this nice when I was just one person. So I protected it like the fortress it was. For 6 months, that house was my secret sanctuary. I'd drive up every weekend sometimes, even leaving Friday afternoon and working remotely. I'd sit on the deck with my coffee in the mornings, watching deer wander through the trees below. I'd work from the dining table with the valley spread out before me, feeling inspired and peaceful in ways I never did in the city. At night, I'd pour a glass of wine and watch the stars, more stars than I'd ever seen in my life, spread across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. It was heaven. Then I made the mistake. One small, stupid, careless mistake. It was mid-May, almost exactly 6 months after I'd bought the house. The sunset that evening was spectacular. The clouds lit up in shades of orange and red that looked almost fake. I took a photo from the deck, the valley in the foreground, the sunset blazing above, and I posted it to Instagram. My private Instagram, the one with only 47 followers, all people I knew personally. The caption was simple, almost throwaway. Found peace. I didn't tag the location. I didn't mention the house. It was just a sunset photo. Innocent. Meaningless. Catastrophic. Within 10 minutes, my family group chat, which had been silent for months, exploded with notifications. My mother, Eleanor, was first. Oh, Faith. What a gorgeous view. Where is that? Is that your place? You bought a house and didn't tell us. The messages came rapid fire after that. My father, Richard, chimed in. Faith Ann, you made a major real estate purchase without consulting the family. We need to discuss the financial implications of this. Taxes, insurance, maintenance costs. You can't just make these decisions in a vacuum. Caleb's message was more casual, but somehow more presumptuous. Wow, sis, nice place. Brooke and I could totally use a weekend getaway spot. When can we visit? I felt my stomach drop. I'd been so careful, so paranoid, and one photo had unraveled all of it. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to think, to strategize, but they didn't wait for a response. The messages kept coming. My mother sent a longer text. Faith, honey, this is perfect timing. Caleb and Brooke are expecting. Did you know that? Of course you knew. We told you last month, though you didn't respond to the group chat. Anyway, their apartment is so small, barely 900 square feet, and with a baby coming, they desperately need more space. They've been looking at houses, but the market is crazy right now. Interest rates are terrible. You have 3 bedrooms up there, right? It looks big enough for 3 bedrooms. Caleb and Brooke could move in. Just temporarily, of course, until they get on their feet. You're in the city all week anyway. It would be perfect. I read that message 3 times, my anger building with each pass. Not a question, not a request, a plan. They'd decided, and they were informing me of the decision. I typed and deleted responses for 20 minutes. Finally, I sent a short, careful message to the group chat. I appreciate the interest, but the house isn't available. I have other plans for it. The response was immediate and explosive. My mother called me. I didn't answer. She called again. I declined the call. She texted. Faith, pick up the phone. We need to talk about this like adults. My father sent a stern message. Aurora, this is exactly the kind of selfish behavior your mother and I have been concerned about. Your brother is starting a family. You're single with no children. You have space. You have resources. The moral thing to do is help. That's what family means. I wanted to scream at the phone. I wanted to text back every hurt, every slight, every forgotten birthday and missed event and thoughtless comment. I wanted to ask where this family loyalty was when I was eating ramen for dinner so I could afford to pay Caleb's rent. Where was it when they missed my graduation, my promotion celebrations, my life? But I didn't. I sent a private message to my mother, figuring she'd be more reasonable. Mom, I understand Caleb and Brooke need space, but this isn't the solution. The house is not available for them to move into. I'm happy to help in other ways, but not this. The response came back within seconds. Faith Stewart, you are breaking my heart. Do you understand that your brother needs you and you're turning your back on him? After everything we've done for you, how dare you be so selfish? What kind of person has 3 empty bedrooms and won't help their pregnant sister-in-law? I stared at that message, my hands shaking. After everything they'd done for me, what exactly had they done for me? Ignored me, forgotten me, used me as an ATM. I didn't respond. I closed the group chat and tried to calm down, but the messages kept coming. Caleb sent me a photo. It was a storage unit packed with boxes all labeled in his messy handwriting. Baby clothes, crib, changing table, nursery decor. The caption read, already started buying stuff, moving day is gonna be crazy, haha. Like it was decided, like I'd agreed, like my house was already his. That's when I called Justine Thorne. My grandmother, Nana Ruth, the only family member who'd ever really seen me, had given me Justine's number years ago. Your parents are going to pull something someday, honey. When they do call this lawyer, she doesn't mess around. I'd saved the number but never imagined I'd need it. Justine answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and professional. Thorne Law. This is Justine. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, trying not to let my voice shake. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long pause. Ms. Vance, she said finally, this isn't a family dispute. This is attempted appropriation of property, possibly fraud if they're manufacturing evidence of an agreement, and definitely harassment. We need to establish clear legal boundaries immediately before this escalates further. We scheduled an appointment for the next day. I drove to her office in Boulder, a sleek space in a renovated historic building. Justine was in her 50s with sharp gray eyes and an air of competence that made me feel safer just sitting across from her. She took detailed notes as I explained the full history, not just the house situation, but years of financial exploitation and emotional manipulation. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Here's what we're going to do. First, we establish legal protection through a formal no trespassing order. Second, we document everything they're saying and doing. Third, we prepare for escalation because, trust me, this will escalate. People who feel entitled to other people's property don't back down easily. She drafted a no trespassing order that afternoon and filed it with the county sheriff's office. It listed Richard Vance, Eleanor Vance, and Caleb Vance by name and specified the exact address of my property. Any unauthorized entry would be considered criminal trespassing. She also sent a formal letter to my parents' home address outlining that the property at Eagles Peak was owned by an LLC, that I was the sole member of that LLC, and that no verbal or implied permission had been given for anyone to occupy the property. The letter included language about civil and criminal penalties for trespassing. It was professional cold and absolutely necessary. When my parents received that letter 3 days later, all hell broke loose. My father called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered thinking it was a work call. "Faith, we need to talk. Now." His voice was ice. I've never heard him so angry. You sent us legal papers. You threatened your own family with legal action. What the hell is wrong with you? I kept my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. Dad, I sent a letter clarifying property ownership. That's all. You were making assumptions about access to my house, and I needed to be clear that those assumptions were incorrect. He interrupted, his voice rising. Don't give me that corporate speak bullshit. This is your brother we're talking about, your pregnant sister-in-law. You have 3 bedrooms and you're going to let them struggle in a cramped apartment. What kind of person does that make you? I took a deep breath. The kind of person who owns her own property and decides how it's used. The kind of person who's tired of being treated like a checkbook with no feelings. The kind of person who's done being invisible until you need something. There was a long, dangerous silence. Then his voice dropped even lower. You've changed, Faith. This city, this career, it's made you cold. Your mother is devastated. She can't even talk about this without crying. You're destroying this family. No, Dad, I said quietly. I'm just not letting you destroy me anymore. I hung up before he could respond. The next message came from Caleb. It was long, rambling, and clearly written in anger. Faith, I can't believe you're doing this. After everything. After all the times I've been there for you. Remember when you needed help moving in college, I drove 6 hours to help you. Remember when you were lonely in Denver and I came to visit. I've always been there for you, and this is how you repay me. By threatening us with legal action. Brooke is 7 months pregnant. 7 months. We need space. We need help, and you have it. You have this huge house that you're keeping to yourself out of pure spite. Mom's right. You've become selfish. I don't even recognize you anymore. I read that message and felt a twisted laugh bubble up in my throat. He'd been there for me. He'd helped me move once 11 years ago and brought it up at every opportunity since. He'd visited Denver twice in 8 years, both times staying at my apartment rent-free for a week, while he partied with his friends and left me to clean up the mess. But somehow in his mind that erased years of me funding his life, I didn't respond. There was no point. But they weren't done, not even close. Over the next 2 weeks, the campaign intensified. My mother posted on Facebook something she rarely did, crafting a carefully worded message that made her look like the victim. Feeling blessed this Thanksgiving season despite some recent family challenges. Caleb and Brooke are expecting their first child, and we're all so excited they're searching for a safe, loving space to bring their baby home to. If anyone knows of rental properties or opportunities in the mountain communities, please reach out. We believe in family, helping family even when it's hard. She didn't mention me by name, but anyone who knew our family would understand exactly who she was, passive-aggressively calling out. Then came the calls from extended family. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, called me crying. Faith, honey, what's going on? Your mother is beside herself. She says you bought a big house and won't let Caleb and Brooke stay there. They're having a baby, sweetie. Babies need space and stability. Can't you just let them stay for a while? My cousin Jennifer, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, sent me a long text about family loyalty and how we're supposed to support each other in times of need. Even my grandmother's sister, Great Aunt Mildred, called to tell me she was disappointed in my selfishness. The pressure was coming from every direction, a coordinated assault designed to make me cave. But I didn't cave. I documented every call, every message, every post. Justine had told me to keep records of everything, and I did. I forwarded her screenshots of the messages, links to the Facebook posts, summaries of the phone calls. She reviewed everything with a clinical eye. "This is good," she said during our next meeting. "They're establishing a pattern of harassment and creating public pressure, which actually helps our case if we need to pursue a restraining order. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't engage. Don't defend yourself publicly. Just document." So that's what I did. I became a silent observer of my own family's campaign against me, watching them paint me as the villain while I said nothing. The weeks leading up to Christmas were tense. I stopped responding to the group chat entirely. I blocked my mother's number after she called me 17 times in one day, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart. I even got a call from my father's colleague at the hospital, Dr. Morrison, who I'd met once at a work function years ago. "Faith, your father is worried about you. He thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe you should talk to someone." The implication was clear. I was crazy. I was irrational. I needed professional help because any sane person would obviously let their family move into their house. Then the weekend before Christmas, something happened that proved Justine right about escalation. I was at the house enjoying what I thought would be a peaceful few days of solitude when my security system alerted me that someone was approaching the driveway. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone and felt my blood run cold. 2 black SUVs, expensive models, were driving up my private road. As they got closer, I could make out the occupants. My father, my mother, Caleb Brooke, with her very pregnant belly, and someone I didn't recognize. A man in a work vest carrying a tool bag. They had brought a locksmith. They parked in my driveway like they owned the place. I watched through the cameras as they got out laughing and chatting like this was a fun family outing. They had suitcases, baby gear. My mother was carrying casserole dishes. They were moving in. They were actually doing it. I felt a surge of panic, then fury, then something colder and more calculated. I'd prepared for this. Justine had prepared me for this. I activated the external speaker on my camera system and spoke clearly. "This is private property. You are not authorized to be here. Please leave immediately." My mother looked up at the camera, her expression a mix of surprise and practiced hurt. "Faith, honey, we just want to talk. It's freezing out here. Let us in and we can discuss this like adults." She was playing to an imaginary audience, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Caleb stepped forward. "Come on, Faith, don't be dramatic. We drove 3 hours. Just open the door." The locksmith was already approaching my front door, examining the smart lock. I spoke again, my voice harder this time. "This is your final warning. Leave now or I'm calling the police." My father's voice boomed in response. "The police? You're going to call the police on your own family on Christmas. Have you lost your mind?" But I was already dialing. 911, what's your emergency?" The operator's voice was calm and professional. "This is Aurora Vance, property manager for Eagles Peak Retreat, LLC. I'm reporting a trespassing in progress at the property. Multiple unauthorized individuals are attempting to gain entry. One of them has hired a locksmith to drill out the door lock. The address is 4200 Ridgeline Road. I need deputies here immediately." The operator confirmed the address and told me deputies were on their way. I stayed on the line describing what I was seeing through the cameras. The locksmith had started drilling into my lock metal shavings falling onto my welcome mat. My family stood behind him, my mother holding casserole dishes like she was arriving for a potluck. Brooke looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot and rubbing her belly. Caleb was on his phone, probably texting someone about what a horrible sister I was. My father stood with his arms crossed, his doctor face on the one that said he was right and everyone else was wrong. It took 12 minutes for the deputies to arrive. 12 minutes that felt like an hour. When I heard the sirens approaching, I watched my family's expressions change through the camera feed. Confusion first, then alarm, then panic, as 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled up with lights flashing. The locksmith dropped his drill and stepped away from the door, hands up in a gesture of innocence. Deputy Miller was the first out of the vehicle, a tall man in his 40s with a no-nonsense demeanor. "Evening, folks. We got a call about a trespassing." "What's going on here?" My mother immediately launched into her performance. "Oh, thank God you're here. Officer, our daughter. She owns this house. She's locked herself inside. We're worried about her mental state. She's been acting erratically and we just want to help her. This is a wellness check, really. Deputy Miller pulled out his tablet and scrolled through some information. Ma'am, I have the report from dispatch. This property is owned by Eagles Peak Retreat, LLC, not Faith Stewart. The property manager who I've been speaking with has a legal no trespass order on file listing Richard Eleanor and Caleb Vance. Is that you folks? My father stepped forward, his voice authoritative. Officer, I'm Dr. Richard Vance. This is clearly a misunderstanding. That LLC is just a legal formality. Our daughter bought this house and we're family. We have every right to be here. Deputy Miller's expression didn't change. Sir, unless you have written permission from the LLC's registered agent, which is not Faith Stewart, by the way you are in violation of that no trespass order, you need to leave the premises now. But we drove 3 hours, my mother protested. It's almost Christmas. Surely you can't expect us to just turn around and drive back in the dark. Deputy Miller's partner, a younger female deputy, spoke up. Ma'am, the law doesn't make exceptions for inconvenience or holidays. You're trespassing. You need to leave. The locksmith was already back in his van, engine running. He clearly wanted no part of whatever this was. My family, however, wasn't giving up easily. Caleb pulled out his phone. This is ridiculous. Faith, I know you can hear me. Stop hiding behind cameras and cops and talk to us like a human being. Brooke tugged at his arm, her voice worried. Caleb, maybe we should just go. This doesn't feel right. He shook her off. No, we have a right to be here. Faith is family. This house is big enough for all of us. Deputy Miller took a step closer to Caleb. Sir, I'm going to need you to lower your voice and return to your vehicle. If you don't comply, I will arrest you for disorderly conduct and trespassing. Is that clear? My father tried a different tack. Officer, I think there's been a miscommunication here. Our daughter has been under a lot of stress lately. She's not thinking clearly. We're just trying to help her. We're worried about her. He said it with such conviction, such practiced authority that I almost believed he believed it. But Deputy Miller wasn't swayed. Sir, I've spoken with the property manager. She's articulate, coherent, and very clear about her wishes. This is not a wellness situation. This is a property rights situation. You are in violation of the law. Now I'm going to ask one more time. Please return to your vehicles and leave the property. If I have to ask again, you'll be spending Christmas in a cell. Is that understood? There was a long, tense moment where I thought my father might actually argue. His jaw was clenched, his eyes hard. But finally he nodded curtly. Fine, we'll leave. But this isn't over. Faith, he shouted toward the camera. You hear me? This isn't over. They loaded back into the SUVs. Slowly, my mother crying theatrical tears, Caleb slamming his door hard enough to rock the vehicle. Brooke looked back at the house with an expression I couldn't quite read. Guilt, embarrassment, relief. As they drove away, Deputy Miller walked closer to the camera by the front door. Ms. Vance, you did the right thing calling us. These situations can escalate quickly. I noticed damage to your lock mechanism from the locksmith. You'll want to document that and possibly press charges. Also, given the level of entitlement your family displayed, I'd recommend filing for a formal restraining order. I have a feeling they're going to be back. His words proved prophetic in ways I couldn't have imagined. I spent Christmas morning with Maya, Liam, and Chloe at the house. I'd invited them up for the weekend partly because I wanted company and partly because I didn't want to be alone if my family tried something else. We made pancakes with far too much chocolate chips, drank mimosas, and exchanged thoughtful gifts. Maya got me a beautiful leather journal with my initials embossed on the cover. Liam gave me a first edition of my favorite novel, something he'd tracked down through rare book dealers. Chloe painted me a watercolor of the valley view from my deck. These people who had known me less than 5 years saw me more clearly than my family ever had. As we sat around my fireplace laughing at Liam's terrible Christmas cracker jokes, my phone buzzed with a notification. My mother had posted on Facebook, "Feeling blessed this Christmas morning. Caleb and Brooke have found the perfect place to start their family. So grateful for everything coming their way. Moving day can't come soon enough." The post included mock-up images of a luxury nursery clearly generated from some interior design website and tagged the location as Elk Crest Mountain, Colorado. My mountain, my area, my property. She'd also included photos of baby furniture and tagged several local moving companies in the comments fishing for recommendations. I showed the post to Maya. She read it and her face went pale. Aurora. What the hell? Are they seriously doing this? Acting like they're moving into your house? Like you gave permission? I felt that cold rage settle over me again. They're manufacturing a paper trail, building evidence that this was always the plan, that I somehow agreed to it. Justine had warned me about this tactic. Create enough public statements, enough digital footprints, and suddenly their version of reality starts looking plausible to outsiders. I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to Justine with a simple message: "They're not stopping." Her response came quickly, even though it was Christmas morning. "I know. I'm watching. Start documenting any mail or communication you receive. I think they're going to get more aggressive." She was right. 2 days later, I drove to town to check my P.O. box at the High Timber Post Office, the small mountain town about 20 minutes from my house. I had all my bills and official correspondence sent there because I didn't want mail sitting in a box at the house when I wasn't there. The box was stuffed full. Too full. I started pulling out envelopes and my hands began to shake. Electric company welcome packet addressed to Caleb and Brooke Vance at my property address. Internet service provider confirmation letter for new service installation, same thing. A Colorado vehicle registration form that appeared to be partially filled out with my property listed as the residence address for Caleb's SUV. A welcome letter from the community HOA, which didn't exist because there was no HOA on my road, but it looked official enough that I had to Google it to confirm it was fake. And most damning, a typed rental agreement 3 pages long with my forged signature at the bottom. The agreement outlined terms for Caleb and Brooke Vance to rent the property for 12 months at the rate of $1 per month starting January 1st. It included clauses about utilities being included, full access to all amenities, and a provision that they could extend the lease indefinitely with 60 days' notice. The signature was close to mine, but not quite right. The loops were too big, the slant was off. But to anyone not comparing it carefully to my actual signature, it might pass. They'd forged my name. They'd actually forged my name on a legal document. I drove straight to Justine's office, breaking every speed limit on the way down from the mountain. I burst through her door, waving the papers. She took them calmly, put on reading glasses, and examined each document carefully. When she finished, she looked up at me with an expression that was part anger, part grim satisfaction. This is what we needed. This crosses from harassment into actual fraud. Multiple felonies, actually. Mail fraud, forgery, identity theft. Ms. Vance, your family just handed us the ammunition to bury them legally. She immediately began drafting a cease and desist letter, this one far more serious than the first. It was 20 pages long, outlining every instance of illegal activity with dates, times, and attached evidence. It listed the potential criminal charges they were facing and demanded they immediately stop all attempts to establish residency forward mail or make any changes using my property address. It also demanded they publicly retract the Facebook post and any other public statements claiming they had permission to occupy the property. The letter gave them 48 hours to comply before she would file formal criminal complaints with law enforcement and pursue civil damages. The letter went out via certified mail email and even had a copy hand delivered to my parents' house by a process server. Justine wanted no doubt that they received it. She also prepared paperwork for a temporary restraining order ready to file at a moment's notice. "We're going to wait and see how they respond to the cease and desist," she explained. "If they ignore it or retaliate, we file for the TRO immediately. These people are escalating rapidly. We need to be ready for anything." The cease and desist was delivered on December 28th. For one blissful day, there was silence. No calls, no texts, no Facebook posts. I actually let myself hope that maybe finally they'd realized they'd gone too far. That hope lasted exactly 26 hours. On the evening of December 30th, my cameras picked up movement at the community mailbox cluster at the end of my road. It was after dark, around 10 p.m., and the cameras switched to night vision mode. A figure approached the mailboxes, glanced around nervously, then opened the main access panel with what looked like a maintenance key. How he got that key, I have no idea, but small-town politics and a well-regarded doctor probably have some perks. The figure stuffed several thick envelopes into my P.O. box, then closed everything up and hurried back to a dark-colored sedan parked on the shoulder. As the figure passed under the single streetlight, the camera caught a clear shot of his face. My father, Dr. Richard Vance, respected physician, pillar of the Maple Bridge community, committing mail fraud on camera. I downloaded the footage immediately and sent it to Justine with a timestamp. I also drove down to the mailbox at 6 a.m. the next morning before any mail carriers arrived and retrieved the envelopes my father had planted. They were chillingly calculated. The first was addressed to my insurance company with a household member affidavit claiming Caleb and Brooke Vance as residents of the property, effective immediately requesting they be added to the homeowner's policy. The second was a notarized letter, and I use that term loosely because the notary signature looked as forged as my own, claiming to be from the property manager of Eagles Peak Retreat LLC, authorizing all members of the Vance family to access the property at will. The third was a bill of sale for baby furniture being delivered to my address with a note asking that it be left inside the house since the residents wouldn't be home that day. It was an evidence manufacturing machine. They were creating an entire paper trail of residency contracts and authorization, all of it fake, all of it designed to make their claim to my house look legitimate. If I hadn't caught them, if I hadn't been watching so carefully, this could have worked. That thought terrified me. How many people lose their property to family members who are willing to lie, forge, and manipulate systems to get what they want? How many victims never realize what's happening until it's too late? I met with Justine at 8 a.m. on New Year's Eve day. She was already in the office despite the holiday reviewing the evidence I'd brought. When she looked up, her expression was grim. Ms. Vance, this is beyond anything I expected. Your father is systematically attempting to establish squatters' rights through fraudulent documentation. This isn't family drama anymore. This is organized fraud. She picked up her phone and made 3 calls in rapid succession. First, to the county sheriff's office reporting mail fraud and providing the video evidence. Second, to the FBI because mail fraud is federal and she wanted it on their radar. Third, to the county clerk's office flagging my property to prevent any unauthorized deed changes or liens. Then, she filed the emergency restraining order, a thick stack of documents backed by photos, videos, fake agreements, and witness statements. The judge, who was apparently in his chambers even on New Year's Eve handling urgent matters, granted it within 2 hours. The order prohibited Richard Eleanor Caleb and Brooke Vance from coming within 500 feet of my property, contacting me directly or through third parties, or making any statements public or private about having permission to occupy or access the property. Violation would result in immediate arrest. Deputy Miller personally served the orders that afternoon. I got a call from him around 4 p.m. Ms. Vance, the orders have been delivered. I have to say your father's reaction was interesting. He claimed this was all a misunderstanding, that he was just trying to help family, that you're going to regret this. Your mother cried a lot. Your brother threatened to sue you for emotional distress. I explained to all of them that their next move determines whether they're facing civil or criminal charges. Ball's in their court now. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something that surprised even me. I decided to throw a New Year's Eve party at my house. A real party. With people I actually liked. Maya, Liam, and Chloe were already planning to come up. I invited some neighbors I'd gotten to know, friendly people who'd welcomed me to the mountain community. I invited a couple of colleagues from work who I'd grown close to. By evening, I had 20 people in my house laughing and drinking and celebrating not just the new year, but the fact that I'd survived the old one. As the sun set, I arranged a display on the entry table. The framed no trespass order, the cease and desist letter, all 20 pages fanned out, the temporary restraining order with its official court seal. Liam asked me why I was displaying legal documents at a party. Because they're war trophies, I said, proof that I fought back and won. He raised his glass to that. Everyone did. The party was in full swing around 8 p.m. when my security system pinged. Vehicles approaching, 2 black SUVs. I felt my stomach drop. They wouldn't. They couldn't. They'd been served restraining orders 4 hours ago, but they did. I pulled up the camera feed on my tablet and projected it onto my TV. Everyone at the party gathered around. My parents, Caleb, Brooke, looking miserable, and a new addition, a man in a cheap suit carrying a briefcase. They parked and approached the front door. I activated the speaker. You are violating a restraining order. Leave immediately or you will be arrested." The man in the suit stepped forward, his smile visible even through the camera. "Ms. Stewart, my name is Gerald Harrison. I'm a family mediator. I'm here to help resolve this unfortunate situation before it causes permanent damage to your family relationships. We have here a proposed temporary occupancy agreement that would allow your brother and his pregnant wife to stay in your home while you continue to live in Denver during the week. It's a compromise that benefits everyone." He held up papers toward the camera. "Based on your implied consent, which your silence on this matter has indicated, we believe this is a reasonable solution." His voice was oily, practiced. He'd done this before. I felt Maya tense beside me. "Implied consent," she muttered. "What the hell?" I took a deep breath and spoke clearly into the microphone. "Mr. Harrison, that is the most creative and desperate application of legal theory I have ever encountered. Silence is not consent. It never has been. Now, all of you are violating a restraining order issued 4 hours ago by Judge Martinez. Leave now." Caleb pushed past the mediator. "Faith, stop hiding behind your lawyer and your cameras and your fake friends." He gestured wildly. "We're family. We're your blood. Brooke is about to have a baby, your niece or nephew, and you're acting like we're strangers. Where's your humanity? Where's your heart?" Brooke pulled at his arm, her voice barely audible. "Caleb, please. This was a mistake. We should go." He shook her off roughly. "No. This is ridiculous. She has 3 bedrooms, 3, and she's using them for what? Guest rooms, a home gym, while we're crammed into a shoebox. It's selfish. It's cruel. It's inhuman." I'd prepared for this moment. Justine had told me it would come. The final confrontation, the moment they pushed all the way and I had to decide how hard to push back. I turned to face the crowd in my living room. "Deputy Miller, would you mind coming to the door?" A man I hadn't even noticed was there stepped out of the kitchen still holding a plate of appetizers, but now with a much more serious expression. He was in civilian clothes, jeans, and a flannel shirt, but he walked with authority. Deputy Miller had accepted my invitation to the party as a neighbor, but right now he was all law enforcement. He moved to stand beside me as I opened the door halfway, keeping the security chain on. Deputy Miller stepped into view, and I watched my family's faces change on the camera feed. Shock, fear, panic. Miller spoke in his official voice, the one that brooked no argument. "Mr. and Mrs. Vance, Mr. Caleb Vance, Mrs. Brooke Vance, and Mr. Harrison. You are all in violation of a court order. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, you are also potentially liable for aiding and abetting that violation. I have here the official restraining order issued today." He held up the document. "Any of you being within 500 feet of this property constitutes a violation. I'm authorized to arrest you immediately. Now I'm going to give you a choice. You can leave right now, get in those vehicles, and drive away. Or I can call for backup and you'll spend New Year's Eve in holding cells. What's it going to be?" My mother's performance was Oscar-worthy. She collapsed dramatically against my father, sobbing. "Richard, she doesn't even care. Our daughter doesn't even care that we're about to be arrested. On New Year's Eve. How did we raise such a cold, heartless child?" My father looked directly at the camera, his face a mask of disappointment and fury. "Faith Ann Stewart, you are going to regret this. Family is everything, and you've just destroyed yours. You'll end up alone, miserable, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. When you're old and dying in some nursing home with no one who cares about you, remember this moment. Remember that you chose this. Those words were designed to hurt, designed to make me doubt myself, designed to make me cave. Instead, I felt something click into place. A final door closing on a chapter of my life that had been painful from the first page. I spoke quietly but clearly enough for the microphone to pick up. "I already did choose this, Dad. I chose peace. I chose boundaries. I chose myself. And I'd make the same choice every single time. Now, leave my property." Deputy Miller stepped outside fully, his hand resting meaningfully on his belt where his off-duty weapon was holstered. "Folks, time's up. Vehicles. Now. Or arrests." The mediator scrambled back to the sedan he'd arrived in, abandoning my family entirely. So much for professional mediation. My parents moved slowly. My mother still crying, my father's face like stone. Caleb helped Brooke into the SUV. His movements jerky with anger, but it was Brooke who surprised everyone. As Caleb walked around to the driver's side, she opened her door again and stepped out. Caleb shouted at her to get back in, but she ignored him. She walked toward the camera, stopping at the edge of the property line, careful not to violate the 500-foot rule. She looked up at the lens, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't expected. Shame, regret, maybe even respect. "Faith Aurora, whoever you are now, I'm sorry." She spoke softly, but the microphones picked it up. "I'm sorry they dragged me into this. I'm sorry I went along with it at first. I thought we were desperate and family helps family and all that. But all of this, it's wrong. It's so wrong. I don't want my baby growing up thinking it's okay to steal someone's home, to forge documents, to lie, and manipulate to get what you want. I don't want to be those people." She wiped her eyes. "I'm going to my sister's house. Caleb can figure out his own housing situation because I won't be part of this anymore. Thank you for standing up for yourself. I wish I'd learned how to do that a long time ago." She turned and walked to her own car, a small sedan parked behind the SUVs that I hadn't even noticed. She got in and drove away. Caleb stood there in shock. "Brooke, get back here. We need to talk about this." But she was gone. My mother wailed. "Now look what you've done. Faith, you've broken up their marriage. You've destroyed your brother's family before his child is even born." Deputy Miller took another step forward. "Ma'am, leave, now, or I arrest all three of you." They left. Finally. Truly. The taillights disappeared down the mountain road, and silence fell. Deputy Miller turned to me with a slight smile. "Happy New Year, Aurora. You okay?" I nodded, surprised to find that I actually was okay. "Better than okay. Thank you. For being here, for helping." He shrugged. "That's what neighbors do. Plus you make a mean spinach dip." He went back inside to rejoin the party. I stood there for a moment longer, watching the empty driveway, the peaceful night, the stars beginning to appear overhead. Then I closed and locked the door. The sound of that lock clicking into place was the most satisfying sound of my entire life. I turned back to my living room full of people who chose to be there, who celebrated me, who respected my boundaries. Maya hugged me. Liam handed me a champagne flute. Chloe was already queuing up music. Someone proposed a toast. To Aurora, who built herself a fortress and defended it like a queen. To choosing yourself. To new families we create instead of the ones we're born into. To peace. We drank. We danced. At midnight, we counted down together and cheered as fireworks someone was setting off in the valley below lit up the sky. And I stood on my deck with my chosen family around me, holding my champagne, breathing in the cold mountain air, and felt truly free for the first time in my life. Standing there in the quiet of the mountains, surrounded by people who celebrated my victories instead of exploiting them, who respected my boundaries instead of trampling them, who loved me for who I was instead of what I could provide, I finally understood what home really meant. It wasn't about blood or obligation or guilt. It was about choosing the people who choose you back. It was about building something that was entirely yours and defending it with everything you had. And it was about knowing deep in your bones that you deserved peace, respect, and a space where you could finally breathe. My name is Aurora Vance. This is my home, and nobody, not even family, will ever take that away from me again. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own peace? What's the line you won't let anyone cross, even the people who are supposed to love you most? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear your stories too. And if this story spoke to you, if you've ever felt invisible or used or taken for granted, hit that like button and subscribe. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is build your own happiness, even if it means walking away from the people who refuse to see your worth. You deserve your own sanctuary. Don't ever let anyone convince you otherwise.